Merry Christmas, and trust that we're all going to have a good new year. Now, every time when we come to celebrate Christmas, you know what is the next thing round the corner? New Year. And Christmas is also a good time to reflect the year that's coming to the end. And so I just trust that this morning, what God put in my heart will encourage you, like what Pastor James said, and really also cause a time for reflection. Since we are in the Christmas season, well, let's look at one verse from the Christmas story. Okay. Luke chapter 2, verse 7. I'm reading from New American Standard Version. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and she wrapped him in cloths and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, if you look at this verse, I underline two phrases. One of it is manger. The other one was no room for them in the inn. So this morning, today's message, if you are writing down, is no room but ... So this message got two things that I would like us to consider, okay? And therefore, this morning, that we want to learn something from this verse. There are two main lessons that we can learn from this Bible verse. Number one, no room in the inn. And secondly, but there's a spare room or spare place. So the first lesson we want to learn is there is no room in the inn. And Luke 2 verse 7 say, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now we are all very familiar story. 2,000 years ago, when Mary and Joseph came to Bethlehem, Mary was pregnant with an unborn child, searching for a place so that they can lie down. Now, to understand the context of the seriousness of this, you read in Luke chapter 2, verse 1, Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus called for everyone in the whole Roman Empire to go back to their birth town to register for a population census. Now, if you read the genealogy, and Joseph came from the descendant of David. Mary, on the other hand, also came from the line of David. So they had to go back to Bethlehem because Bethlehem is the birthplace of David. Now, the biggest problem that they faced was that Bethlehem was a very small town in those days. You guess how many people were there at that time? There were only 300 people. And when the census was declared, people came from everywhere, descended in this small town called Bethlehem, and suddenly there was an influx coming in. Now, to help you to understand this concept of the influx. Now, how many of you have been during the holidays, years and years or recently, been to the Great Ocean Drive during the summer holiday? Can I see your hand? Okay, some of you. And a couple of times, I took my family there. Now, most of the towns along the Great Ocean Drive are very small. But because it is a scenic tourist place, people like me living in Melbourne decided, let's go and have holiday there. And suddenly, the towns along the Great Ocean Drive bursted with tourists. And the population tripled even more. So what happened was that the local people, they like the business, but they don't like people like you coming from everywhere. Why? Because the public toilet, you have a long queue. To go for fish and chip, a long queue. Everything is a long queue. So after 2 or 3 times, I decided, forget about going to Great Ocean Drive because everything is a long queue. Okay? So just helping you the context of Mary and Joseph with the unborn child going to Bethlehem. So this is the context 2,000 years ago. But you may say, Pastor John, what has that got to do with me? This aspect of no room. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples how this aspect of no room is relevant. Now, every one of you had a mobile phone, right? Okay, the problem is no matter how modern your phone, my one is really an ancient relic. I think my one is number 11 due for upgrade. Most mobile phone has limited storage. True? So whenever I have time, free time, while my wife goes shopping for an hour, I will sit in the food court and spend the next half an hour doing what? Deleting photos, deleting video, deleting WhatsApp, deleting all kinds of stuff on this. For what purpose? To have more storage. Because if I don't delete this, I cannot take any more photos. My grandson, my only grandson, just became 2 years old. So every time when my wife and I visit him or look after him, my wife always says, take photo of him, take photo of him. So if I don't delete spaces, photo, there is no room for this phone to take any more photos. Okay? Then the next thing was that a couple of years ago, I was living in Montana South for many, many years. My kids go to Waverly Christian College. And then we decided to sell the house. Now, having lived in Malaysia, New Zealand, Australia, and I brought lots and lots of stuff. My most precious stuff are my Christian books. And, just came from everywhere. And after years and years and years collecting, by the time we want to sell the house, guess what happened to my house? Are full of stuff. Full of stuff. So one of my friends said, you need to start decluttering. And you need to start 2 years in advance. So we start emptying, throwing rubbish, throwing things. And I told my wife, let's be ruthless. Let's be ruthless. Get rid of things that we don't need. So we spent 2 years decluttering. So that by the time we sell a house, the house was presentable. So we are making room. So no room is a very important concept, even in our modern life. Let's get back to our own personal life. Most of us live a very active, busy life. And because of the fast pace of modern life, the pressure of life, each day we are overloaded. Our goal is to survive this day so that we're ready for next day. And to be honest, most of us are overcrowded. We don't have enough emotional capacity, hate space to think of. And many times when my wife wants to talk to me, you know what happened? I have no more room in my head. And if she go into detail, I say, headlines, please, headlines. My mind has no head space for details. And therefore, it is very important for us as we are coming to the end of 1 year to examine our life, whether we have enough head space, emotional capacity for things that are of concern to God. Let's look at one very important Matthew 25, verse 42 to verse 45. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of them, you did not do it to me. Now, you and I are very familiar with this parable, the parable of the sheep and goat. The people in the category of the goat tell Jesus, we did not see you at all. When did we see you? Jesus replied, I was there as a stranger, someone without clothing, sick and in prison, but you did not see me. In other words, when I come knocking at your door, you don't have the head space, the emotional capacity to see me. You are so occupied with your own life that when I come knocking at your door, you have eyes, but you do not see. You have ears, but you don't see, because you have no room in your life. So, what happened to Jesus, Joseph, Mary, 2,000 years in Bethlehem, do apply in our modern days. The story of the goat and the sheep. And then we saw that Revelation 3 verse 17. For you say, I am rich, I prosper, I need nothing. Not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. The church at Laodicea was so full of everything that they have no need of anything. Their remark was this: I don't need anything. I am full. There is no room in my life for anything else. And therefore, they were so full of themselves that Jesus was kicked out from that church. What a sad thing. 2,000 years ago, when Joseph and Mary, Jesus, came knocking, there was no room in the inn. A couple of decades ago, the church at Laodicea, the head of the church, Jesus Christ, was kicked out from the church. Why? Because that church was overcrowded, was full. It has no room. So that's the first lesson I want to draw your attention. The second lesson is this. But still, a spare room. Luke chapter 2, verse 7. She gave birth to her first son, wrapped in clothes, and laid him in a manger. There was no room for them to stay at the inn. As I say, and in Bethlehem, as Joseph and Mary went from one inn to another inn, they discovered every inn had no room. Finally, one innkeeper saw that Mary was about to give birth. He sympathized, and remember, there was one room that was not being used, that was kept for all the animals. So even though he had no actual room in the inn, he remembered he had a spare room. So what happened was that he gave that spare room to Mary, Joseph. Now, most of us, I'm not sure now whether we still send hard copy of the Christmas card. My wife's slightly a bit more traditional, so he still sent. Now, most of the Christmas card had beautiful decoration and picture of Mary, Joseph, nativity set. And the baby Jesus, very cute. The animal, very cute. And the manger, very cute. But actually, that's not reality. The manger actually is a food truck where hay are kept for the animal to feed on. Another translation says that it is a bed of hay. Now, the spare room for the animal was not that pretty. And some preachers say this, that if you were Joseph and Mary, you would not allow your wife to give birth to your firstborn son in a manger. You know why? Because number one, it is dirty. Secondly, it is unhygienic. And thirdly, full of noises where the animal make noises morning, afternoon, and night. You would not want your wife to give birth to the firstborn son. You would not want your daughter-in-law to give birth to them. Okay, so we have to erase that beautiful Christmas card nativity set to realize the reality, how much Jesus humbled himself. He was not born in the king's palace. He was born in the midst of the animals. A place where, honestly, I would not want to have my firstborn son born there. So, the issue here is this. Do you have anything in your life to offer to God for Him to use? Even how insignificant it may be to the natural. This innkeeper had a spare room of a manger, yet he offered it. And today the question is there something in your life, even insignificant, that you say, oh, I didn't even think about that, but I can offer that to you? One day, in a burning bush experience, God asked Moses a very simple question. Moses was a shepherd. Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? A staff, he replied. God asked Moses, what was in your hand? And Moses said, a dry old stick. And what happened? When Moses offered this dry old stick to God, God turned that dry old stick to become a weapon of miracle, a tool of miracle. And that is so powerful. You may think this thing that I'm carrying, a dry old stick, is insignificant. But when you give that to God, God can turn that into become a tool of miracle. God can turn it into a weapon of warfare. And God causes Moses to use a dry old stick to confront Pharaoh, the greatest power in those regions. And God used Moses, say, stretch up your hand. And that dry old stick parted the Red Sea. Today, God is asking, what is in your hand? Another example, John 6, verse 9 to 11. There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many? Jesus said, have the people sit down. So the man sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish as much as they wanted. You see, all that Jesus wanted to teach the disciple is go and search for something. And they found a boy who had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. As a result of that 5 loaves of bread, 2 fishes, just a boy's lunch, 5,000 people. No, 5,000 men were fed. Some theologians say that in the crowd of Jesus' audience, there were bound to be women. 5,000 men, probably 5,000 women. In those days, there's no babysitter. So the children follow the mothers. Probably there will be another 5,000 children. Conservatively, there were 15,000 people fed by a boy's lunch. That's amazing. For many, many years, I was a senior pastor of a movement in Malaysia, East Malaysia. And during my first year of marriage, we were so poor because we were the pastor of a very young church in East Malaysia, in Kuching. And we began to reach out to the student. And most of you know students don't have much money. So my salary was so low. So the only transport I could afford is just a motorbike. So I took my wife around. And then somebody had pity on me. So they gave us this old bomb car. And this car is so long and only have 2 doors. And when you drive the car, you are like driving a whale around the street. The street in Kuching are really, and it make a lot of noises. Okay, in those days, and we have to bring people to church, and the bus system was terrible. So in those days, there's no seat belt. Okay, that's a good thing. There's no seat belt. So we were reaching out to the natives in the squatter areas. So every Sunday before going to church, my wife and I would drive this old bomb well to pick up this bunch of people who are living in the squatters. So we drive there, we pick up. And we want to pack as many people inside the well. So we will arrange the father, mother, and their children according to height, size. And then we open one door and we pile them in one by one, like sardine. Okay, the male face this side, the female face one side, and we just jam-pack in, pack. And just as well, the car ride was about maybe 15 minutes. So, so we pack them in, and then we drive them to church. Right at the church doorstep, we open the door. Then we tell them a way to get out. You can't just come out. We then had to say, okay, you come out first. No, you stay there. You come out first. And we then unpack them one by one. They go to church. Everyone happy. Then, after church service, the same thing. We pack them in one by one like sardine. They are happy. We are happy. So, that's how we did church. And every Saturday night, I would just look at the car just to make sure things are going. I remember one Saturday night, getting ready for the next day. I opened the car, I looked at the petrol gauge. It was absolutely empty. And my wallet has no money. But there was such a peace in my heart. And I lift out to God. I said, God, the car has no petrol and my wallet has no money. Please solve this problem. Or else I cannot go to church. I cannot bring the people. There will be at least 12 people waiting. So I went to sleep. The next morning I woke up, opened the door, went to the car. Right at the car screen, I saw something glistering on the windscreen. I went over. Stuck on the windscreen, on the wiper, was a crisp $50 note. Never seen it before or after. And when I touched it, a shiver went through my whole spine. And then I realized that that night before I went to sleep, I told God, I need money to put petrol in. You know what? I look around to see whether anybody put the money there or not. No one was around. The gate was locked, so nobody can come in. And to this day, I believe that God is so good. And I echo Pastor James, God is so good that when God heard my prayer of help, He got the angels in the bank of heaven to print a $50 note and send an angel fly. And while I was sleeping, stuck it on the windscreen, waiting for me. Now, you have heard people say, money don't fall down from the sky. Is that right? How many have heard that? It is not true, sorry. It is not true. I experienced that. Money, even those once only, literally fell down from heaven and stuck on the windscreen. I took that money, went to the petrol station, pumped full tank, and then we went to pick our church members. The church member never knew about it. They were as happy as before coming to church. And today, I want to tell this. What do you have in your hand? I only have a dry, old bomb car. But for a year or two before that car gave out its ghost, we have people coming to church. This morning, as we approach another new year, in order to receive new things from this coming new year, I believe we need to declutter things from our life. We don't want to bring unnecessary baggage this year into the new year. You know, after New Year, for those of us from the Chinese descendant, after New Year comes another event called Chinese New Year. Okay, for years and years and years, the tradition of Chinese people is that to prepare for the new year, they sweep all the rubbish from the house. They do a fresh painting, and the parents will prepare a set of new clothing for the children to wear. You know why? The idea is that a new year is coming. You don't bring something old into the new. And likewise, spiritually, we do not want to bring excess baggage of an old year into the new year. Because if your life and my life are full of old stuff, we have no room for the new things that God has in store for us. So, what are the things that we need to declutter from our lives to make space and room? Matthew 4 verse 19. But all too quickly, the message is crowded out by the worries of this life, the lure, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desire of other things. So no fruit is produced. This verse tells us three things that sometimes crowded and overcrowded our life. Worry of this life. You know, Jesus spent half a chapter talking about worry because at one point or the other, we do worry. Okay? And those of you parents who have children studying for exam, you know, in those days, the children came here to study university. The mother came from Malaysia, from Asia, to come 1 month before the exam to cook for their kids in those days. And then, when the kids go to exam, the mother worried more than the actual children doing exam. Worry. The second thing is the chasing after riches career, wealth. The problem is not wealth. Wealth is neutral, but it's the pursuit, the deceitfulness, and then the wrong desire for other things. And because those things overcrowded our life have no more space and room for Jesus to lead us and to do new things in our life today. As I come to a conclusion, I believe that God wants us to think of two things. Before we reach 31st December, a couple of days more, firstly, ask God to show you what things you're most worried and anxious about. The temptation of wanting more and more stuff and the wrong desire that He wants us to empty from ourselves. Secondly, is there something in your life, in your home, that you can offer to God to use for this coming year? You never know when God will come knocking at your door and ask, what is in your hand? What is your hand that I can use today? Why don't we all stand and begin to pray? Let's all stand. Let's bow our heads and close our eyes in reflection of this year, 2024, as we enter into a new year. God is asking you, as you look at this year, 2024, is your life so crowded with things that are of no eternal value that honestly you don't have much room for anything else? That when Jesus comes knocking on your door, you have no head space and emotional capacity to allow Jesus to lead you into the new things of this year. And this morning, with all heads bowed and all eyes closed, I want to pray for you right where you are. And you say, God, to be honest, as I look at my life this year, I am overcrowded with stuff really don't matter for eternity. This morning, as I raised into a new year, give me the faith and the tenacity to declutter things in my life so that I may have room in my life for you to lead me into the new things for 2025. I know you have new things for me in this coming year, and I'm asking you to prepare. This morning, with all heads bowed, eyes closed, if that is your desire, say, God, create in me new room, new space. Please put out your hands all over the place, and I'm going to pray for you right now. Just all over the place, just no one looking around. You just put out your hand and you say, God, help me to have more room in my life for you for this coming year. Father, I want to bless you for what you are doing in this church, in the lives of men and women and children. And this morning, I pray that you will fill everyone with hope, with joy and peace, and the power of the Holy Spirit as each one look into this new year with uncertainty and doubts. But one thing we have in confidence, that because you live, we can face tomorrow. And we know you are a good God, and you will lead us from strength to strength. And this morning, begin to open our spiritual eyes and let the Spirit of God begin to examine our life. What are the things we need to declutter, to empty, like Jesus wanting to come into our life? And I pray for every one of us this morning, especially those that live out their hand, and say, give us faith and strength and wisdom and tenacity to empty things that are not profitable for the kingdom of God, so that we will always have space for the new things of God. We thank you in Jesus' name. Every day say amen.